It's midday right here in Lagos, Nigeria, and I have big political gist for you on the program. Welcome to Lunchtime Politics. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. Let's begin with the headlines. Governor Seyi Makinde's reference to Operation Wetia, a 60s political violence in Western Nigeria, divides the polity. APC vehemently condemns assertion, says it's recipe for violence. As opposition believes it's caution to ruling party to learn from history by allowing dissenting voices thrive. And Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Gbajabiamila, says Surulere will back Obafemi Hamzat governorship ambition, perhaps further confirming that the incumbent deputy governor will be APC candidate in 2027. We have officially come into the season where you will be inundated with loads and loads of political developments across board. The reason is simple. The parties have just a few weeks between now and May the 30th to put their house in order. And so we're clear on who is going to be vying for what office, from president, National Assembly, governors to state assembly members. So a lot of horse trading, a lot of conversation is going on. And I can also tell you for free, there will be a lot of hot air and noise. Our job is to separate substance from all of that noise and bring you the biggest gist as far as politics is concerned. But let's get started right here in Lagos, where the Deputy Governor, Kadri Hamzat, has met with the Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, alongside key leaders of the All Progressive Congress as consultations intensify ahead of the 2027 governorship race. Mr. Hamzat says he sought Mr. Gbajabiamila's counsel and experience to strengthen his strategy for the governorship contest under the APC. On his part, Mr. Gbajabiamila assured the Deputy Governor of support, adding that if primaries are required, the party will conduct them in line with the Electoral Act.
We are here in furtherance to our consultation across the state. We are a progressive party. We have leaders. We have foundation, we have roots. We don't just go out. And we are Africans, we are Yorubas, we are Igbos, whatever. So the part of the culture is to talk to elders, to get advice. You know, Albert Einstein said that knowledge is about experience. You can't remember what you don't know. You can only remember things that don't. And all these leaders, they've been there. They've seen many Christmases. So we must sit down with them, we must talk to them, to make sure that we get advice, what do we do, what do we not do, and so on and so forth, and to seek their prayer and blessings. So we are here to make sure that we are able to get his support, and because he's a brother, and therefore you cannot go out there without talking to people that are close to you.
He talked about process. Before he got to where he is now, there's a process that started, and it's that process that brought him here. Two things. I'm a party loyalist to the core. Secondly, he's somebody I know well, and I know his capacity. I've known him for years, so why would he not have my support? So yes, he has my support, and I'm sure he will have the support of practically every APC member. Hopefully, I believe there will be a consensus, and that's what the Electoral Act talks about. It's either we have direct primaries or we have consensus. This is the build-up to the consensus, and it's moving steadily, it's moving very fast, and I believe we'll get there. If we don't get there, we'll go to the primaries as the law dictates. And either way, this process that has started, we believe we will finish it, and we will finish well and strong.
Oh, that's what we're looking at in Lagos State. Let's head to River State in another party where the former managing director of the River State Signage and Advertising Agency, Chukwudi Dingpa, has emerged as the chairman-elect of the African Democratic Congress in River State. This followed a consensus state congress held recently. According to the ADC, the election committee, the election, which was conducted across the 23 local government areas and 319 wards in line with guidelines from the party's national leadership, also produced key state and local government party executives.
We are done with the congresses. New executive have been elected. In a couple of days, there will be a proper handover and they will take up the next phase of the party. And one of the things I can tell you for free is a transitional thing. And for those of us that have been, piloting the affairs of the party for over the years now, at this point, we have to give support to the newly elected executive.
Most people right now can expect, we'll call it at the end of the day, dividends of democracy. In a democratic setting, the power belongs to the people. And the ADC under our leadership and the ADC as a party from time has also showcased that power should come from the people. You will see my emergence by consensus, and it was a discussion that was held all around, all the leaders, and you can see the outflow of goodwill, which means it came from the people. The ADC is a party for them. Registration is ongoing. We are open and willing to have everybody. Everybody is a leader within the party ADC. Once the people are leading, be rest assured that victory will be assured.
Okay, let's also tell you what is playing out in Delta State, because in Delta, there seems to be a little bit of an issue for the APC, because there are contentions around who is going to return or who is going to come to the Senate. The former Deputy Senate President, Obioma Agege, has reaffirmed his support for President Tinubu while intensifying grassroots mobilization. That's ahead of 2027, addressing party leaders or members at the Subi Airport, expressing confidence in the administration's economic reform, and declared his intention to return to the Senate, promising the Delta Central stronger representation and a louder voice in national affairs.
They want to hear the Urobo voice in the Senate. That was what I provided in the 8th and the 9th Senate. And by the grace of God and your support, that voice will be heard again in the 11th Senate. Wait here. Let me say this. I chose to run this race on the platform of the APC. As we move into the primaries, or at the end of the primaries, after we have emerged, we will come together as a people. We will come together as a party, and we will fight to return all the APC candidates, from the president, the governorship, the Senate, the House of Rep, and all of the House of Assembly candidates.
So for those of you who are not familiar, may not be familiar with Delta politics, let me tell you what exactly is playing out here for your own information. So there are two senatorial districts that we're watching very closely, and that has to do with Delta Central and Delta North. Ovie Omar Agege was the Deputy Senate President when he was in the Senate. Now the current person in that seat, that's Senator Dafinoniede. I'm sure he wants to go back to the Senate. So now that Ovie Omar Agege says he wants to return, let's see how the APC is going to handle this, because we hear from meetings, according to report, that the president is actually giving the governors some level of power to be able to, manage the affairs of the party within their state, to know who returns and who doesn't. That's on one hand in Delta Central. If you go to Delta North, Senator Ned Nwoko, who doesn't need introduction, is also planning to go back to the Senate. But former governor, who was also a senator, the immediate past governor of Delta State, Ifeanyi Okowa, also wants to go back to the Senate. So it's now a battle between Omar Agege and Dafinoni, and then Nwoko and Okowa. So it's one place that we're going to see how the APC will manage this particular, brewing contest, if you will. But perhaps one of the biggest things that happened at the weekend was what played out in Ibadan. Political parties, opposition political parties, now this is beyond the ADC. So we had the Turaki group of the PDP come together with the ADC and maybe some other political party. They met in Ibadan to form some kind of an understanding on the way forward to be able to face the APC and Bola Tinubu, the president. And one of the decisions they made is that they're going to have a candidate for that election from that opposition. Now, the modalities are not out, but something happened when the governor of the state, Seyi Makinde, had made his remarks and said, look, some things that are going on in places like in a place like Nigeria, it's important to contextualize because history teaches a lesson, and he made reference to Operation Wettier. And now Operation Wettier was a very dark spot in the history of Nigeria in the 60s, 65 or so, when the ruling party conducted an election. It was supposed the election is massively rigged, and that caused a lot of problem within the interest group in the western Nigeria. That is what brought the division, or culminated in the crescendo of the division between Ladoke Akintola and the sage himself, Obafemi Awolowo. In fact, it is believed that was crystallized into a civil war. So it was reminding the opposition, the ruling party, that if you continue to stifle the space, remember Operation Wettier, and the ruling party didn't find that funny. They condemned it and say it is beneath him to have said what he said, and said the security agencies should look at it. But take a listen for yourself to what Governor Seyi Makinde said at that particular summit.
Democracy is not defined by the success of one party. It is defined by the existence of real alternatives, by the ability of citizens to choose, and by the confidence that those choices matter. Once that disappears, what we have may still be called democracy, but it will no longer function as one. Now, this discussion is happening here in Ibadan is not by accident. Ibadan has always served as the political capital of the Southwest, and indeed, Nigeria. And let me sound a note of warning for those that are carrying on as if there will not be tomorrow. They should remember that Operation Wettier started from here. This is the same wild, wild west. Let me also be clear about what this meeting is not. It is not a gang-up against one man. And it is not about individual ambition to be president. It is about the collective ambition of the Nigerian people to have a democracy that is properly defined. This is a gathering about something more fundamental: the survival of a system that allows Nigeria to remain open, competitive, and accountable. Because democracy without opposition is not democracy. It is a slow drift towards a one-party state.
Let me bring in my guest, who is a member of the ADC, is also the convener of ADC Young Leaders Forum, Member Summit Planning Committee, Mr. Ezeokoli Chimeze Jack. Mr. Jack, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon.
Yes, I'm particularly delighted that I'm talking to a successor generation. I've always advocated that young people should join politics. They should join APC, join PDP, join anything you want to join. Because you cannot sit maybe on Twitter and change Nigeria. You have to be on ground to be able to change Nigeria. So welcome to the program. Let's talk about what you make of the remarks of Governor Seyi Makinde I don't think you were born, correct me if I'm wrong, when Operation Wetia happened. But it was a dark spot in Nigeria's history where political disagreement happened, and that degenerated to what became the civil war that took a lot of lives in Nigeria. So I hope you can, do you understand when the APC is super angry that references were made to Operation Wetia, or how do you weigh in on that?
Thank you so much. So first, to start with, I was in the hall when, you know, Governor Seyi Makinde made that statement and made that comment. And I agree with you. Just like you said, I was not born at the time Operation Wetia happened. But I also watched the reaction of our leaders, those that were born at the time when, you know, Operation Wetia happened. And they quite agree with what the governor has said, or, you know, the comment made by the governor. Largely because, you know, the ruling party has actually, you know, it's pushing all the opposition parties to the wall at the moment, right? Starting from, you know, causing chaos in almost all the political parties you have in the country at the moment. You know, the manner with which they prosecute opposition leaders. And this is what is bringing opposition together at the moment. And, you know, we are thankful to them, because maybe if the PDP and the Labour Party and, you know, every other party don't have internal issues like the Accord and all of that, maybe we will not be having, maybe there will be no Ibadan, you know, summit. Maybe we are not going to have this conversation. So the truth of the matter is that the governor said what is in the minds of every major opposition leader at the moment. APC is stifling opposition in the country, and somebody has to be bold enough to say it to them. You cannot, you know, claim to that we are practicing democracy. You cannot, you know, claim that you know, what we have today is democracy, and that you have the people by your side, and you have done well, you know, so far by the people. You cannot at the same time try every other thing. You pressure, you know, judges in the Supreme Court and the High Court to give, you know, judgments against, you know, what is known, you know, against the laws of the land, every other single time. So the truth of the matter is that somebody has to warn the APC, because the way our country is going at the moment, right? If they continue this way, I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I mean, there will be chaos.
Ms. Isaac, let me come in
Nigerians
here.
are not going to
Yes.
We are not going to bow to this, you know, level of
yes.
you know,
let me come in here. So, as a matter of fact, I'm sure that everybody who is a lover of democracy and a patriot wants a viable opposition.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, yeah, I can hear you now.
Fantastic. I'm saying
yes,
every patriot and conscientious person who wants the good of Nigeria wants opposition to thrive, because if there was no opposition in 2014, there will not be APC. But we must, when we are speaking on TV, when you're making allegations, it must be founded. The APC has constantly said, this is not our problem. We are not causing problem for you. You are self-inflicting yourself. And then there's no evidence to the fact that they are pressuring any judge to do anything. If you have that evidence, I would like to have it. But at best, what we hear is just, you know, speculations, and we cannot rely on speculation. So I would like to stick to what we can defend. But where I'm going to with that is, just hold on, sir. Where I'm going to with that is, let's even accept without conceding that the APC that has denied that they are responsible, let's even accept without conceding that they are responsible for your crisis. Is the ADC, for instance, not in itself, didn't they walk into the crisis themselves by the way the party was taken over, which is a case under adjudication? So I'm speaking based on the interlocutory appeal that was spoken, the judges at the appeal court made a decision for him to go back and hear the case at the trial court. Do you think that there's also a part of this whole crisis that ADC should take some responsibility for?
Well, the truth of the matter is that when you have a mega coalition like what you have today in the ADC, where you have, you know, political components from different parts that were actually not even together in the last election cycle, like, Alhaji Atiku Abubakar came in with a lot of energy. You have the old CPC faction that came in with a lot of energy. You have the Obedient movement led by His Excellency Mr. Peter Obi that came with a lot of energy. You have the Kwankwasia. You have, different components. First of all, there's a lot of enthusiasm around ADC. So it is understandable that, there would be a couple of maybe internal wranglings here and there. However, the truth of the matter is that the ADC had not committed any crime in terms of the way the party was taking over. There were conversations. It didn't start like the party didn't just come and then push every other person away. As a matter of fact, legacy members of ADC are still integral part of what we're doing. You can see Ralph Nwosu was at Ibadan, right? You have a couple of members of the past NWC that were incorporated into the party activities, and in some cases they are even leading in some of the in some instances. So there is no walking into crisis. Nobody. There is no leadership anywhere that intentionally walks into crisis anywhere. However, what we have is a case of a situation where some elements that are disgruntled, which is normal in the political terrain, are now being funded and fueled by how do I put it? They are now fueled and funded by the government in power. Because I mean, this is no longer accusation because there are evidences to prove. You heard what the chief of staff to the president said, to Honorable Leke the last time, that they are happy with what he's doing, that he should stay in the ADC and destroy it. So what other evidence do you need that the government of the day is the one funding the crisis in the opposition party? However, we are happy. Some of us in the opposition, we are happy with what they are doing because what they have eventually done is to actually bond the opposition, right? What they are doing is to push the opposition to the wall, right? And pushing us to the wall means that we now have to stick together to fight for the future of our country. And it's not, like the governor said, it's not about an individual now. It's not even a gang up against the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. The issue is that our democracy we must sustain it. And some people have to stand up to make sure that, we have other parties that are viable outside the APC. So that in the election, Nigerians will be able to have options. They will have choice to say, oh, we don't like A, we like B. We don't like B, we like C. That's why we have multi-party, democracy. And it should be sustained. And that's what this fight is about. That is what Ibadan Summit is about for us.
All right,
right?
If
it has nothing to do with personal attacks or vendetta against any individual.
So let's go to the next layer as we begin to wind down. The ADC issues has layers. So let's talk about the next layer that people are saying is going to be one of the major litmus tests of the ADC. And that has to do with what happens after a decision will be made in terms of who is going to be the flag bearer of the party, or standard bearer as it's called, and who is going to be the running mate, which is what happened in PDP that snowballed into the literal decimation of the PDP right now. Now a divided house, still case in court. So from where you sit and what you know as a young Nigerian who is a politician, do you see the ADC surviving the primaries of this period? Because we have at least 4 people whose eyes are on the ticket to run for office.
Okay, thank you. So, like you said, from where I sit and what I know, and I know what I know at the moment is that, first of all, there is commitment by our leaders, right? Serious commitment, at least behind the scene, to ensure that the coalition works. But the Ibadan Summit actually brought another dimension to it, because it's no longer just about the ADC now. There is a PDP, that is in the room now. There is Accord that is in the room now. There is APP that is in the room now. There's DLA that is in the room now. There's Labour Party that is in the room now. So the conversation is a lot more broader. And what we're trying to do, or what the opposition wants to do, is to ensure that we all go into the election, at least the presidential election, as a unified force. And so if you're asking about ADC in particular, I'm not sure that, that is the full picture. I am aware that conversations are being had at the moment, and what I can tell you categorically is that the coalition will work, and that the leaders will stick together because they understand that 2027 is more about the survival of our democracy than even individual aspirations, right? What we can hope, or what I hope personally as a young Nigerian who is really passionate about the greatness of our country and the sustenance of democracy in our country, and who is conscious of the precedent that we set, because I usually tell young people like myself that, look, what the older generation is doing, they are going to destroy this country and leave it for us, and we are going to suffer the consequences. So from what I know, I am only hoping that at the end of the day, that Nigeria comes first in the minds of all our leaders, as against their personal ambitions, and that is all I can say.
I want to ask you a non-political question, or a question that cuts across party lines. Do you think that young people have been given the kind of opportunity they deserve as far as the political space is concerned in Nigeria, from what you know?
Okay, well, so I will answer the question in two ways. First, I don't think that the older generation has been intentional about including young people. But I also don't think that the young people have also lived up to expectations in terms of getting involved, because nobody gives you power. Nobody brings you into a room. You have to create a room. You have to create a table for yourself. You have to actually prove to the older generation that you can take responsibility, that you can get things done when called upon. And the onus is on us, my generation, to actually get involved. Nobody is going to stop you when you say, oh, I want to be part of this, I want to do this, I want to help to do this. But some people just sit down in their houses and, waiting for somebody to call them and say, oh, come, I want to give you this, I want to make you chairman of a party. It doesn't work that way. So while I don't think that the older generation has been intentional, which is, taking it upon themselves to say, look, we want to actually make sure that young people get involved enough, I also believe largely that young people has not lived up to expectations. So I want to urge every young person listening to me to get involved and be part of the politics of Nigeria and our future. Thank you.
All right. No, fantastic points you've raised. I'm going to do what I'm going to do on this show is, when all the noise is over and we begin to have some substance to the conversation, I'll try as mainstream as much young people as possible, so that your faces and your voices can be known across political line. Let's hear what you have on offer, besides, what the elderlies, the old guards are saying, because as a matter of fact, you're the successor generation. But I must thank you. I'm sure you're aligned with the president. He said, power is not served a la carte. You grab it, you run with it. Blessing Ezeokole is the ADC Young Leaders Forum convener. Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir, for having me.
Welcome. That's it on the program. Thank you so much for your time and company. The week just got started. A lot of politics is in the works. So right here at noon, I'll make sure I keep you updated. I'm Jeffrey Uzoma. You've been served on Lunchtime Politics. Bye-bye.